July 4, 1943. The night air over the Kursk salient is heavy with fuel fumes and dust. Engines idle in darkness, their vibrations felt through steel hulls and frozen soil. New Panthers sit nose to tail, paint still clean, crews silent. Veteran tank commanders walk the line, checking tracks, listening for unfamiliar sounds. One of them does not climb aboard. He is a decorated Panzer ace, hardened by years of fighting in the East. He studies the ground ahead layered defenses, mine belts, open killing fields, and reaches a conclusion others refuse to voice. At the moment Germany prepares its largest armored assault, he chooses not to fight. That decision was shaped long before this night. The German army arrives at this moment battered and uncertain. February 1943 has already stripped away illusion. At Stalingrad, an entire field army vanished into snow and captivity, taking with it the myth of German inevitability in the East. For the first time, the Red Army is not merely resisting. It is dictating the rhythm of the war. In Berlin, the response is not restraint, but resolve. Adolf Hitler demands a decisive blow, one that will erase defeat and restore initiative before Allied industry fully asserts itself. On maps spread across headquarters tables, the Kursk salient appears as an opportunity too large to ignore. A bulge of Soviet territory pressing westward, vulnerable in theory to a double envelopment. The plan receives a name, Operation Citadel, yet time works against it. Each delay meant to strengthen German forces gives the Soviets more weeks to prepare. Intelligence reports warn of deep defenses. Reconnaissance photos show scars across the earth trenches, tank ditches, minefields layered mile after mile. Still, the order stands. Germany commits what remains of its armored strength. Elite panzer divisions are rebuilt with new machines and hastily trained crews. Veterans are reassigned to stiffen formations stretched thin by losses. Among them are men who have survived Moscow, Kharkov, and the Caucasus. They have learned what optimism costs on the Eastern Front. And they sense that this offensive is not being shaped by experience, but by necessity. By the summer of 1943, the German Panzer Arm is no longer the force that crossed the Soviet border 2 years earlier. Its core of experienced crews has been thinned by attrition, exhaustion, and wounds that never fully heal. What remains is a mixture of hardened veterans and replacements rushed from training grounds into machines they barely understand. Much of Germany's hope now rests on technology. The Panther tank, conceived as an answer to the Soviet T-34, arrives at the front almost straight from the factory. Its armor and gun promise dominance on paper. In reality, engines overheat, transmissions fail, and crews lack time to master maintenance under fire. Even the heavier Tiger, feared by enemies and revered by propaganda, is few in number and vulnerable when immobilized. Strategically, German planners assume that superior tactics will compensate for diminishing resources. They believe Soviet morale will break under concentrated armored thrusts, but this belief ignores a fundamental shift. The Red Army of 1943 is not the force of 1941. It has absorbed defeat, refined doctrine, and learned how to trade space for destruction. Frontline commanders understand this difference instinctively. They see the density of Soviet defenses and recognize a battle of attrition disguised as maneuver. Some comply in silence. Others raise concerns that never reach beyond regimental desks, and one tank ace respected, experienced, and deeply skeptical concludes that participation itself would serve no tactical purpose. As dawn approaches, the tension between planning and reality tightens. What begins next will test machines, doctrines, and the judgment of those who chose to listen or refused. The Panzer ace at the center of this story is not a defiant ideologue or a political dissenter. He is a professional soldier shaped by repetition: ambush, advance, counterattack, retreat. His victories were earned not through reckless aggression, but through patience, positioning, and an understanding of Soviet behavior under pressure. By 1943, that understanding carries a burden. He knows how the Red Army absorbs blows. He knows how quickly success turns into encirclement when momentum fails. Refusal, in this context, is not cowardice. It is an assessment born of survival. The leadership angle. German command culture still prizes obedience above adaptation. Reports flow upward, filtered by optimism, shaped by what superiors want to hear. Field commanders are expected to execute, not to question the premise of an operation. Veterans who have spent years at the front recognize this pattern. They have seen warnings ignored before outside Moscow, near Rzhev, in the ruins of Stalingrad. The ace's refusal quietly exposes a widening gap between those who plan war on maps and those who fight it in mud and smoke. The technological angle Operation Citadel is intended to showcase German armored superiority. Instead, it concentrates mechanical risk at the decisive point. Panthers break down before reaching the line of departure. Recovery vehicles clog narrow roads under Soviet artillery fire. A tank that cannot move becomes a bunker, then a target. Veterans understand this instinctively. They know that armor without reliability is a liability. The ace does not distrust the Panther's gun or armor. He distrusts the assumption that unproven machines can compensate for time, preparation, and enemy adaptation. Together, these angles converge on a single conclusion. This battle will not be decided by brilliance or bravery alone. It will be decided by endurance, and Germany no longer holds that advantage. As German engines begin to roar in unison. Another perspective waits beyond the minefields. Across the salient, Soviet commanders are not guessing. They know the attack is coming, where it will fall, and roughly when it will begin. Months of intelligence, partisan reports, and aerial reconnaissance have stripped away surprise. What replaces it is depth. Defensive belts extend for miles, trenches, wire, anti-tank ditches, artillery positions plotted in advance. Tank brigades wait not at the front, but behind it, prepared to strike only after German momentum bleeds away. From the Soviet view, Citadel is not an emergency. It is an opportunity, the moral angle within the German army. Refusal is rare and dangerous. Orders are not suggestions. Yet professional responsibility does not always align with obedience. The ace understands that participation would place his crew inside a collapsing tactical logic. To fight would not alter the outcome. It would only add names to casualty lists already prepared. His decision is quiet, administrative, and personal. It carries no speech, no gesture of protest. Only absence. The psychological angle. Mid-1943. Something intangible has shifted inside veteran formations. Confidence has thinned into habit. Aggression into routine. Men still perform their duties, but belief no longer drives them forward. They sense that each offensive now demands more than it can deliver. The ace has crossed this threshold. He has seen enough victories dissolve into withdrawals to recognize the pattern forming again. The opening barrage will be immense, the advance will be costly, and the end will look disturbingly familiar. All of these forces enemy preparation, technological strain, moral friction, and psychological fatigue are already in motion before the first shot is fired. When dawn breaks on July 5, 1943, they collide not in theory, but in fire and steel. The decision to fight or not to fight is about to be judged by events no individual can control. July 5, 1943. At 2:20 a.m., the night explodes. Soviet artillery opens fire across the northern and southern shoulders of the Kursk salient, striking German assembly areas before the offensive can begin. It is not decisive, but it is revealing. The Red Army knows where the blow will fall. By first light, German guns answer back. Thousands of barrels fire in sequence, shaking the ground and flattening the forward Soviet line. Then the armor moves. In the south, 2 SS Panzer Corps pushes forward through smoke and dust. In the north, 9th Army advances into some of the most heavily prepared defenses ever constructed. Progress is immediate and deceptive. Minefields tear open tracks. Panthers halt, crews scrambling under fire to repair overheated engines. Infantry advances slow to walking pace, forced to clear obstacles one by one. Every kilometer costs time, fuel, and men. German command reports success. Maps are marked with arrows pushing eastward, but beneath the symbols, attrition is already winning. Units lose momentum faster than they can regain it. Tank numbers shrink not from enemy fire alone, but from mechanical collapse. The Panzer ace watches this unfold from the margins. He sees columns stalled on narrow approach routes. He hears reports of Tigers immobilized by mines, Panthers abandoned intact. The battlefield confirms what experience had already warned him. This is not a breakthrough battle. It is a controlled burn. By July 7th, the German advance has penetrated only a fraction of the planned depth. Soviet reserves remain largely intact. Behind the lines, entire tank armies wait for the moment when German armor is exhausted enough to be destroyed in counterstroke. For those already committed, withdrawal is no longer simple. Momentum locks formations in place. Orders demand continuation. There is no mechanism to pause an offensive of this scale without admitting failure. The ace's absence goes largely unnoticed amid the chaos. The battle has grown too large for individual decisions to matter except in their consequences. And as German spearheads push deeper into resistance that thickens rather than breaks, the decisive collision draws closer. By mid-July, the offensive has narrowed into a brutal contest of exhaustion. In the south, German armor drives toward a rail junction near Prokhorovka, where the terrain funnels movement into a confined corridor. On July 12th, Soviet commanders commit their reserves. What follows is not a sweeping maneuver battle, but a collision at point-blank range. Hundreds of tanks converge in heat, dust, and smoke. Visibility collapses. Crews fire at silhouettes, measured in meters. German gunnery inflicts damage, but there is no room to exploit it. Soviet armor keeps coming, accepting losses to deny space. Every disabled German tank reduces offensive power permanently. Soviet losses, by contrast, can be replaced. To the north, 9th Army has already stalled. Repeated assaults fail to crack the final defensive belts. Infantry units dig in under artillery fire, advancing meters at a time. There is no breakthrough to exploit, no operational freedom left. On July 13th, the decision arrives from above. News of Allied landings in Sicily reaches Hitler's headquarters. The strategic balance shifts instantly. Operation Citadel is halted. For German commanders at the front, the order confirms what many already know. The offensive has reached its limit. No reserves remain to restore momentum. The Panzer arm, once the instrument of decisive war, has been bled into fragility. The tank ace's judgment is no longer theoretical. The battlefield has rendered its verdict. Engines burn where they stalled days earlier. Abandoned Panthers litter approach routes, stripped by crews and left as immobile steel monuments to haste. The veterans who fought now prepare to defend ground they never expected to hold for long. Kursk does not end the war in a single moment. But it ends something more subtle and more important. It ends Germany's ability to choose when and where to attack on the Eastern Front. From this point forward, initiative belongs to the Red Army. The choice made in the darkness before the offensive now echoes across the battlefield. Not as defiance, but as foresight, quiet, unrecorded, and confirmed only after the fighting stops. What follows is not victory or retreat, but reckoning. When the guns fall silent, the scale of the loss becomes unavoidable. Operation Citadel has consumed Germany's last strategic reserve of armored strength. Exact figures vary by source, but the pattern is clear. Hundreds of tanks are destroyed, damaged, or abandoned beyond repair. Elite panzer divisions that once formed the spearhead of German operations now exist only on paper. Casualties extend beyond machines. Veteran crews, irreplaceable carriers of experience, are killed, wounded, or dispersed into shattered units. German after-action reports speak carefully, but their tone shifts. Optimism gives way to assessment. The language of breakthrough is replaced by the language of containment. Soviet losses are immense, yet calculated. Red Army reports acknowledge staggering attrition while emphasizing success in mission. The enemy offensive has been absorbed and broken. The defensive belts have held. The counterstrokes have landed. Strategic initiative has been seized. Psychologically, the impact is immediate. German soldiers recognize that something fundamental has changed. This was not a defeat like others, a retreat that could be corrected by planning or reinforcement. It was a failure of assumption. The belief that experience and technology could overcome numbers, preparation, and time has collapsed under fire. For those who chose not to fight, there is no celebration, only confirmation. The cost of participation is now written across the landscape in burned-out hulls and hastily marked graves. And the consequences of that cost are only beginning to unfold. In the months that follow, the consequences of Kursk spread far beyond the battlefield. German armored doctrine shifts under pressure, not by design. Offensive concepts give way to layered defense, mobile reserves, and calculated withdrawal. The panzer divisions remain dangerous, but they are no longer instruments of decision, they are tools of delay. Industrial reality reinforces this shift. German factories increase production, but quantity cannot replace time. New tanks arrive faster than crews can be trained to use them effectively. Fuel shortages limit maneuver. Air superiority, once contested, steadily tilts toward the Allies. Every future operation is constrained before it begins. Within the command structure, Kursk leaves an unspoken lesson. Experience at the front is not always welcome at the top. Warnings offered by veterans are remembered only after they prove correct. The refusal of a single ace does not change doctrine, but it reflects a deeper fracture between reality and expectation, between what can be ordered and what can be achieved. For the Red Army, the outcome is transformative. Kursk becomes proof that preparation, depth, and resilience can absorb even the most powerful assault. From this point forward, Soviet offensives roll westward with increasing confidence and coordination. The war enters a new phase. Initiative belongs elsewhere now. And decisions once seen as insubordination are quietly reinterpreted as clarity too late to alter the course, but sharp enough to illuminate it. The Battle of Kursk is often remembered for scale thousands of tanks, miles of defenses, days of unbroken fire, but its deeper lesson lies in judgment. War rewards not only courage, but honesty, the ability to recognize when strength has become habit and momentum has turned into inertia. The German tank ace, who refused to fight, did not change the outcome. No individual could, yet his decision reveals a quiet truth about modern war. Experience accumulates faster than doctrine adapts. Those closest to the fighting often see the end first. Kursk marks the moment when Germany's armored arm ceased to be a weapon of choice and became a shield against inevitability.